there's probably about 15 at the end that are reference slides that we might pull up later depending on questions, but also for you to have that go into a little bit more in depth about some of the cleaning measures and things like that. So there is a completion of a health screening form. That's a one-time form that needs to be completed by parents. It can be completed online. Basically, you're agreeing to, again, if you've been to a doctor's or dentist office lately, right, you fill out the form that basically says you don't have any symptoms of COVID. And so that would be for your child, and that you agree that every day you're going to make sure that you do a check and that they don't have a fever and they don't have a sore throat, things like that. We are doing daily temperature checks. We have our staff, so if they take a bus, they're going to get a temperature check to get on the bus, and then all students will get a temperature check before they enter our building, whether that's through kiss and ride, walking, or coming from the bus. Practicing social distancing as best we can here. Again, that's why we're limited to the number of students that can come each day into each classroom. Sanitization. Our cleaning staff, our custodial staff has new measures that were put in July, and so they are doing more cleaning of high-touch areas. They're going in during breaks currently in our preschool programs, doing a thorough cleaning during the day as well. Of course, emphasizing washing hands, wearing masks, and we do have isolation rooms, 2 isolation rooms, one the conference room and one in my office. If a student does have symptoms, they'll be moved there. We'll call parents, get them picked up, and then those students need to have a medical documentation to return, whether that's a negative COVID test or whether that's just a note from the doctor to say, we saw the child and they're okay, maybe it's strep throat, something like that. So they will need to see the doctor. All right, next, so, what is concurrent instruction? So for concurrent instruction here, the in-person program will be the only one using concurrent instruction. So our 100% virtual students, if you choose that option, things are going to look pretty similar, other than, again, and I know it's a huge downside to it, but again, I think to keep our instructional program strong, this is the best way to go. And so they may have a new teacher in the virtual setting, but the flow of the day and what they're doing and how they do it looks very similar. Monday is an independent work day, or will become an independent work day for all students eventually as we phase back in. But you see there on this schedule here that your in-person students, we break up into 2 groups. Group A has school Tuesday and Wednesday in person. Group B has school Thursday and Friday in person. And then they're online the days where they're not here. This is a picture of, a little bit of a depiction of what a classroom may look like. So on the left, you have the students at school. It is going to look more traditional with desks facing the same direction. Again, those are some of the health protocols and spacing them 6 feet apart. And you also will have some students at home logging in through Google Meet, just like they've been doing, and accessing the class meetings, accessing the lessons during the course of the day. So combine a few questions here about how teachers manage this and some examples of delivering instruction. And so I want to bring up, this is a slide that will be new. So I put stars behind the first 2 columns because, this concurrent model where we're teaching kids both in person and we have them at home is a new model, right? This is something, again, that our teachers have not done before. I think their teachers have shown a great ability to learn quickly and improve practices. And so, we're going to most likely start right here in this initiate or performing area, right? So all students will join a class meeting, whether they're in person or they join in through the Google Meet. All the students would have a language arts focus lesson. And then early on, students will be given, if they're online, more independent or asynchronous work to finish out that block of time while the teacher is working with the students that are in person. As you go down that chart, you see that eventually we're going to get to the point where we're mixing in more of the in-person, more of the virtual students into small groups. Again, the key here is that over the summer, it was a completely asynchronous day, right? And so if the kids were at home, those 2 days that they would be at home, they had no assistance from a teacher, right? So the model is certainly better than it was in July, and it's going to take a little bit of time for us to get used to this from a teaching point of view. We did just get cameras today, cameras with microphones, and so our T-Spec is testing those out, and as soon as he's comfortable, we're going to get them to our kindergarten teachers so they can start to experiment with it. So I think we can quickly move from the left side of the chart to the right side of the chart, but I do want to show you, what we're envisioning, right? So hopefully that clears up a few of those questions on that previous slide. All right, so some questions that came through. Will students be attending on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, Friday based on last name? And that answer is yes. We need to start somewhere, and so that's where we'll start. And again, we can make some adjustments. I can't promise you that it's going to be 100% yes on everyone, because we are going to be limited to the number of students in a classroom. I'm looking at our numbers now, for instance, in kindergarten. And so what happened is facilities came through, and based on the square footage of the room, told us how many people, and that includes adults. So like most of our kindergarten rooms are around 17 max, right? And that includes adults. And we usually have a kindergarten teacher and kindergarten IA. So you're talking about 15 students. So we can physically fit students and keep them safe with the social distancing of 6 feet. We can certainly, you can send a request in once we get going here of a day if it needs to switch. But again, I just can't guarantee you 100% that can happen. The teacher receives an ADA accommodation and is teaching from home while students are in school with an attendant. Will parents receive this information prior to their decisions needing to be confirmed? So I just want to go back, and I think I talked about this in the video, but the reason behind this decision is I do feel this is the strongest instructional choice. We know we're delivering a strong instruction or virtual program now, and so we're able to continue that. And I think we can get to a place where we're delivering a strong in-person / concurrent program. And I think separating out those all virtual students is key to that. I think a teacher who doesn't see any of the students and they're just online for 4 days a week is a big challenge. So this is one of the silver linings of doing this, is that our virtual teachers, if they're going to be virtual, they can stay with virtual students, because if we went with a fully concurrent model all across the entire school, you would have situations where a teacher would be virtual because of that ADA accommodation. We'd have to stick an adult in the classroom to monitor them, and basically your kids would be on the computer much more, they'd be basically learning virtually but sitting in a classroom doing it. So this is not going to happen because of the way that we're choosing things. I will tell you that we have one teacher who we know, and this is where I have to be mindful of, I can't cross certain lines with HR, but I can tell you we have one teacher who for sure will be teaching virtually. And that teacher, I don't know if she reached out to her kids or her parents yesterday. If not, she's doing it today. So she's the one person that for sure is teaching virtually. We're very lucky here. Our staff certainly has some preferences, but in terms of that tier 1 accommodation, most of our teachers are able to come back and have told me that they will do what's needed in best interest of the kids, and so we're fortunate from a staffing standpoint for that. Will there be a final decision regarding concurrent versus synchronous model for the days that children are not attending in person? So I wanted to tell you that as students phase back in, Mondays start to become fully asynchronous. So kindergarten, I know the date there is November 2nd. Of course, that's Monday, and we have a holiday, or the students do. And so starting November 9th, every Monday for kindergarten, regardless of your choice, whether you're 100% virtual or you're in person, becomes asynchronous. And as groups phase back in, Mondays become asynchronous. So by December 7th, our current Monday schedule will no longer exist, because by December 7th, all grade levels would become asynchronous on Monday. And again, in-person instruction, students will not be asynchronous. They'll participate in their class through Google Meet on days they're virtual, and there will be times when they have independent work to complete, but it's never going to be, it's not going to be for extended hours of time, right? You're talking about, maybe 30 or 40 minutes after a focus lesson that they may have some independent work to do. And again, as we're able to get our arms around that system of concurrent learning, that will be less and less. Will the start and end time change? So as of now, start and end times are not changing. So whether you come in person or you're virtual, that's going to stay 8:45 to 3:45. However, transportation has told us as more groups phase in, particularly the 7th to 12th grade group, and that right now, I believe, is like a February 1st timeline. But just as more students come back and more buses are needed, and we need to follow social distancing procedures on buses, the possibility exists that the times could change back to those times that we were told in July. So right now they're not changing, but that possibility does exist as groups phase back in. If a student is an in-person student but is ill, will they be allowed to attend virtually? And yes, they can attend virtually. And so they would just hop into their Google Meet, and instead of being in person that day, they could attend virtually. How will specials takes place? Will the teacher be streaming into the classroom or be in person? Will kids go to that particular specials classroom and do the class there, or do they stay in the same classroom they're in all day and have specials teacher come to their classroom? There's also some additional, I think we have our next slide. Yes, so there's been a few questions about specials. So for virtual, the students are same experience, right? If you're in a 100% virtual campus, you log in to the Google Meet, and the specials will be presented virtually. In-person students, right now, teachers will come into the classroom that they're in. So if you're in a kindergarten classroom, the PE teacher will come in to the classroom and deliver PE. Again, we're trying to find a line of, there's going to be interactions with adults, right? And so whether that's coming into the school building, we need to get lunch coverage for teachers because lunch is going to be in the classrooms. We certainly want to make sure that the adults do so at a safe distance, right? And we're wearing masks and social distancing. So they will come into the classroom. Right now, again, we've been, the guidance is to limit the amount of spaces that children are traveling to, especially if multiple children are going to be in those spaces, right? So right now, that's the plan. For PE, PE would be the first one that we would hope to phase in, partly because that space is so large, right? And so if you think about, again, back to my example I'm going to go back a few slides here, but that sample class that I had back here, if things break down and we have 58 in-person students and about half of them are coming each day, that's about 30 kids, right? So it's roughly, for kindergarten, if we go to the gym for PE, right, that's basically one class that's usually in PE, right? And we sometimes have multiple classes in there. So I would like to get, again, we got to do it safely, right? But get kids into some of these locations, and PE seems to be the one that I think is most natural to try to get out of a classroom, right? We can, an art classroom looks similar to a regular classroom, same with the music classroom. Our Spanish teachers already travel during the course of the year into classrooms. So they'll, again, start out in the classroom, but we will try to phase in traveling to those areas as we get more safety measures in place. Will screen breaks look like, what will they look like here? So again, we're going to transfer that schedule, and I had it handy here. We got a break coming up at right, 10:05 is a break. So that would be a break for the entire school. Here, that would be, again, a chance to stretch, move around the room. They can take mask breaks. Again, once the mask comes off, you know, we really need to enforce that 6 feet. You know, we want to enforce both of those as much as possible because that's the best way to mitigate at this point. But certainly when the mask is off, you know, at least 6 feet, if not more. You know, chance to use the restroom. Teachers, you know, our kindergarten teachers are pretty close to the exits. They could go for a quick walk outside. Again, you know, giving them a chance to take some breaks. And I would say in the building, it's not a screen break because we're going to do our best to limit the amount of time that the kids are on their computer. This is not the teacher, you know, again, kindergartners and through 6th grade, they all used the computer last year leading up to March 12th, right? If you would come in, you would have seen a station in kindergarten where kids were on the computer. So it's not that we're never going to use the computer, but we just be really mindful of when we're using it, right? Because we realize on their 2 virtual days that they'll be on the computer more. So recess, right now we're not able to use playground equipment. I am hopeful we're supposed to get some additional guidance this week that we can start to use that. And so we're waiting on that. But right now we're not able to use playground equipment. You know, again, we think the best thing we're being told is to wear masks as much as possible, even outside. But if they need to take them outside, we're a little bit more comfortable with that, right? Because, you know, being outside is better than being inside. And, you know, we'd be asking them to keep within at least 10 feet of somebody else if their mask is off. And again, we'll do our best to develop games and activities. We have a list of games and activities that were created for our preschool students, which can certainly be helpful with our kindergarten students. And we're going to work with our PE staff once we know how many kids are coming back, you know, to come up with ideas for games to play and things to keep them busy outside at recess. And whoops. Yep. So this slide here about recess is just what we've been sent from the county. And so I added that in there for a reference. Again, we will have recess. So we're also envisioning dividing up areas. So like our back field, we feel like we can divide that in half, and you could have 30 students on each side, and we can be doing some different activities and games to keep them busy. We want to use the field when you cross over the bridge in the back, pretty big field back there. And of course, adult supervision, right? All this is under adult supervision, but divide that field in half. That gives us another 2 areas. We do have the blacktop, the 2 different blacktop areas. And so we want to make sure that, you know, it's not just a recess where everyone's going out. You know, there's going to be more structure to it. And again, right now, unfortunately, the playgrounds can't be used. So if we get some guidance on how to use them, we certainly will. And then just go back again to that visual, right? If you came during recess, you would see multiple grade levels outside at once, right? So we might have 200 kids outside at recess sometimes, right? And in this scenario, far less when you think about the number of kids that are coming back in person, right? Somewhere probably between, you know, 30 to 40 kids probably in a grade level as opposed to 100 or more. So that is recess. And again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we would take recess and lunch the same time that we currently have that lunch break in our school-wide schedule. When our students are in the classroom, will the teacher be able to walk around? So yes, the teacher will be able to walk around. This has changed a little bit in terms of, first we were envisioning buying teachers a microphone that they could stick to their sweater or shirt, because that's the biggest thing. We tested it here. As soon as you get about 10 or 15 feet away from the computer microphone doesn't work very well. But the cameras we got in this morning are equipped with mics, so we will make sure that teachers have mics either through the camera or ones that we order that they will have on their shirt. So yeah, they'll be moving around, still be able to be heard by virtual students if they step away from the camera. And again, encouraged to keep distance, but at times, right, they're going to have to spend a small amount of time, very close to a student if they need some sort of help. Small groups, so we'll continue with small groups, again, following safety protocols of keeping masks on and keeping that 6-foot distance. But small groups are an important part of instruction. Homeroom staff or additional staff, so no extra staffing. Our kindergarten continues to have IAs in each classroom. Our resource teachers and IAs support multiple classes and multiple groups of students. I know that was one of the schools profiled in that video. Some schools have taken their IAs, all their resource folks, and put them with one particular class for language arts and math. We felt that, that's great for that class, right? If I put we have 2 reading specialists. So if I put a reading specialist with one class, that's great for that class, but she's no longer able to help anybody else during language arts time or our math coach during math time. So we're not getting any additional staffing. So only our kindergarten really has the extra person devoted there on a full-time basis. PPE was a question. We'll provide students with 1 mask. We're encouraging them to bring other masks from home. Teachers are provided mask, face shield, gloves, and then other items as needed, as they feel they need, or in some of our classrooms based on student needs. And then all classrooms have hand sanitizer, Virex cleaning solution, which kills the virus. And they also, our kindergarten and first grade classrooms have their own bathrooms, which is good, and sinks in the classroom. And then certainly as the 2nd through 6th graders come back in, it's always good to see some students. As they come back in, we'll certainly be sending them practicing social distancing to wash hands frequently in our bathrooms. The in-person students have computers and ability to utilize Google Meet to connect with their peers. And so in-person students will need to bring a charged laptop daily. Our goal is to limit the use of technology when in person. So for instance, when they have that class meeting, those students that are here in school, right, their computer is going to be down, and their class meeting, other than not sitting next to somebody on the carpet, is going to look similar to what it was before, right? They're going to have live interaction with the teacher. And they'll connect virtually with classmates during morning meeting, and other times is organized by the teacher. And certainly there'll be times where the teacher can project on the smart board, her Google Meet, right? So that kids can see each other, even during lunch, as we start to build this out during lunch, we may have the kids up there if they want to join their other classmates for lunch. Virtually, we can do that. For children at home, will the family choice become time that all students, not just some of our smaller groups, get to participate in? Again, at this time, our schedule will not change, but we certainly will look for additional opportunities, especially because our Mondays are changing, right? Because eventually, again, by December 7th, the current Monday model, it's going to be all asynchronous. And so we'll look to add some additional opportunities for all students during that family choice time at the end of the day. And we're almost done. I've done a lot of talking, sorry. Question about counselors. So counselors will continue to assist students both in person and virtually, and we will have counselors here on site. And I believe that is it. So if you submitted a question after about, I think, noon yesterday is when I started working on this, I apologize I didn't get to it. Again, session's being recorded, and we'll send out all the recordings tomorrow along with the presentation. I'm just going to click through. I'm not going to talk about it. We can go back if we need to, but I just want to show you if you looked at any of the school board meetings, these are a lot of the slides from there that they put in. And so I also put in some resources and some how-to videos. So again, we could spend the next 3 hours going through all those slides. We're not going to do that. So I'm going to open up the chat. If you have questions, whoops, sorry. You can put them in the chat, and if you'd rather say it verbally, just put 2 question marks in the chat if you want to talk, and then put questions in the chat too if you want. Based on where they were in terms of, yep. So Marion, yes, what I will say is because we're going to have to make some changes to the classes, certainly the information is going to be shared from teacher to teacher about where they are. And so we'll get those groups up and running pretty quickly. But there is going to be a little bit of phase of getting to, again, to know the students. But yes, working in small groups, virtually, that's breakout rooms, is important to instruction. And Karen, look, I wish I could, this is a true chicken and egg situation, right? I wish I could tell you these 2 teachers are going to be virtual and these 2 are in person. But it's all based on the numbers, right? Like if 100% of the first graders decide to come back, then all the teachers in theory would come back into the building to teach, right? And same thing, if everyone decides to go virtual, then all the teachers are virtual, right? What I can tell you is that we have, from a staffing standpoint, there are some schools that have entire grade levels where teachers have been approved for a tier 1 accommodation, right? So we have very, very few of those. And so, we can definitely support, from a staffing standpoint, 2 strong programs. And it really depends on the grade level. Based on summer numbers, we had some grade levels that were 70% in person and 30% virtual, and other grade levels, it was the exact opposite, right? So I don't know why that occurred. Again, part of the reason, I said in July was, I think although frustrating, and I know you want more answers, I think it's important that at least you have the ability to resurvey, right? Because the original intent was to keep whatever your July decision was to not resurvey, right? And we pushed really hard and felt like that was totally unfair, right? Because what happened, what your knowledge of virtual learning was in July, may have changed for good or for worse. And so at least we do have the ability to get your preference. So, and I agree. Certainly, Karen, back to, and I see the second part of your question, if we can keep the students with their teacher, that's certainly want to do. But at the end of the day, this is how we can deliver 2 strong instructional programs. And, again, we may look back on it and, certainly I can take criticism for the choice. I don't think there's a great choice either way, to be honest. I think both choices are, there's a lot of downsides to both. I don't think a kid sitting in class just doing virtual learning because their teacher can't be there is a great option. And so we certainly want to minimize the change. So mass breaks, again, if a kid needs a mass break, the big thing is they need to tell the teacher, right? So if they're in our block of time, which is an hour for language arts right now, and they need a mass break, they can take a mass break. They just need to let the teacher know, and they need to make sure, right, that that 6-foot distance is strictly adhered to, or maybe even, further away. And then during, again, based on our schedule, right, we have breaks at 10:05 for 10 minutes. We have another break at 11:15 for 10 minutes. We have that school-wide lunch break, which for the kids in person will be lunch and recess, half-hour lunch, half-hour recess, and then another break at 2:25, right? So we'll continue to have those breaks, both in person and virtual. And they can take place either. Again, outdoors, the virus seems to spread less, it's a little bit safer outdoors than indoors. So we certainly will, encourage, if they're going to take the masks off, certainly at recess, following that 6 to 10 foot rule is going to be important. So Elizabeth, we may need to. I don't want to cancel them. I think there's an answer there. It just may not be on Mondays anymore, because what's happening is Monday becomes a full day of planning for the teachers. So first off, it's up to those teachers. If they want to continue to run the clubs on Monday, they can, but I would hope to find time for those clubs to occur. So I don't have plans to cancel them. I certainly want them to continue. And again, they're going to continue until December 7th. December 7th is when that becomes the first Monday where all grade levels are asynchronous. And I know that can be a little confusing as we phase kids back in. Yeah, so the Virex is being used at night to clean the rooms. And then if something occurs, if somebody, sneezes on a desk, or there's some sort of that viral transmission, then we will clean that desk and move that student to a different desk in the room. But it is not, we're not spraying it on computers. It's not a cleaning solution in terms of, it's to kill the virus. So that's when we're using it, is when we feel like, some sort of viral transmission has occurred and we need to clean that surface, and then it's used again at night. The bathrooms are being used or being cleaned right now. Our preschool bathrooms, when the kids are out of the room, they're going in. So during recess times, they're going in to clean the bathrooms. So the teacher change will take effect on the first day of in-person learning. So let's use kindergarten as an example. I see more students. Hi, students. Let me go back to our dates here. So for kindergarten, the first day of students, so it's the week of the 16th, but November 17th is the first day we'll make changes. We hope to certainly connect the kids with their new teacher. Kindergarten is under such a tighter timeline. And if you're a kindergarten parent, and we're going to send this information out starting next week, but there's also additional asynchronous days for the teachers to get ready. And those days are the 12th and 13th of November. So kindergarten's under a tighter window. For instance, for first and second grade, we have a little bit more time. So the 30th, actually it'll be December 1st, the first day that teachers or kids change. But we would do something that week before, right? So teachers can meet their new students, and new students can meet their teacher. So let's see here. I'm going to go to Helen. Helen, if you can go ahead and turn your mic on, because you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, I thought it was too long to write, but thank you so much for hosting this. But my husband is an FCPS teacher, and I know that they offer that option in the summer for them to come all 4 days. And is that still available? And if so, how would that look like for my child? And I know this is a very specific question, so sorry.
That's okay. That is still available. There is a form your husband needs to fill out, and if he doesn't know where that is, send me an email and I'll forward it to you, but it was in the communication Dr. Braybrand sent on Friday to employees. So yeah, they'll be in the class 4 days for in-person instruction. So they will, you know, their Tuesday through Friday will look the exact same. Again, it was in the summer, because the kids were fully asynchronous on the days when they weren't in person. You know, since that has changed, right? Every day the focus lesson is going to be different, right? For all of the students. So it's really 4 days of learning in person for that child.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, I lost my spot in the chat, sorry. Yeah, so Austin, they will get, right now, they will get less synchronous time with the teacher because, you know, we want to make sure that the students here in person are, you know, that's the primary attention for the teacher. I think, again, if you go back, and I'll pull up that chart, as our teachers get better at this, you know, and I think, you know, it won't take more than a few weeks, but moving into this sustaining area, right, where it really is seamless between the kids at home and the kids in person. But again, this is a brand new model of teaching. We've never done it, and so you know, they're certainly going to be in there for class meeting. They'll certainly be in there for the focus lesson, and then, you know, to start out, they may get a period of time for some independent work while the teacher is working with the kids in person. So, you know, I just want to be realistic. Again, as I said in the video, I'm not convincing you one way or the other. I think both programs can be equally strong, but the in-person program and the way we're doing it is certainly something we haven't done before. But, you know, we hadn't done virtual learning to the extent that we've done before, and our teachers adapted quickly and are providing very good lessons. If we really like our teacher, probably just want to stick with the same teacher. Is that an option? So it's not really, because I can't tell you. This is that chicken and egg question, and I you know, again, if everybody comes back, then I have every teacher back in the building, right? If nobody comes back virtually, then all my teachers are virtual, right? And if it's some split half and half, you know, then we make that decision of who's coming in. And again, on my side, it's fortunate that almost all of our teachers are able to come back in person. And let's see, will class caps apply? Yep, class caps apply to virtual or in person. So we need to follow those. VDOE has not given us any relief from those. Will students in a concurrent model be able to have snacks at their desk when they're in their classroom? And yeah, yes, they can. You know, we're encouraging, and this isn't a big of a deal as the kids get older, but yeah, they can definitely have snacks, right? Sometimes at the younger grade levels, sometimes a parent will provide snacks, so we're discouraging that, you know, things like that. So just make sure they have their own individual stuff. If we end up giving kids a snack, it will be individual packaged of stuff. We don't usually give out snacks, but if sometimes we do, you know, we're not going to buy like a big package of goldfish and scoop our hands in and start dishing those out anymore, right? So it'll be individual package of things. If there's time to change due to, if this affect the 100% virtual kids' schedule change. So Elizabeth, I don't know this one yet. My initial answer is I think if everyone's back in the school, it certainly could, right? Because we are going to have, you know, some of the small groups. If we start switching for advanced math, you know, we're running advanced math both in person and virtually. You know, that was the guidance over the summer, right? The guidance over the summer was the school hours for everybody was going to be the same. So not a firm no, but a definite lean towards a yes there. Is the school going to provide a sleeve or case for the laptops? Yeah, so we're not officially an FCPS on school, and an FCPS on school, they do get the cases, so we do have the information about that, and so that will come out of my local cost, which we will. I'm leaning that way. My only hesitation is I wanted to make sure that we had the technology needed in the rooms first in terms of the microphone, and now that we have this camera today, that looks like it may be both a camera and mic. So yes, that's certainly in our plans, but just know they're not being provided by FCPS because we're not an official FCPS on school. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe students at Lanier probably were provided a case. And just so you know, the difference is they are officially FCPS on, we're unofficially, but yeah, we realize that. And we hope that when they bring them, they may not necessarily need to transport them. Then, if they're here Tuesday, they may not need to bring them home, right? They can keep them here overnight on Tuesday, and then bring them home Wednesday. So we'll work through that, but that is on our radar. Advanced math will still be offered. Again, that really kicks in third grade. So, we have some time to sort that out. But yes, advanced math is going to be offered, whether your student chooses virtual or in person. And Beth, they will, if you're talking about within the class, I think, right? Like if you're, certainly again, during class meeting, during the focus lesson, again, during lunch, our kids are going to be eating lunch, right? So that's another easy way for a teacher to project a Google Meet up on the board. And that way the kids can see each other. So there'll be some interactions. Can you donate PPE? So we're actually good with PPE. Our county has a lot stockpiled for us. We've been getting, it seems like every day I walk in, there's a new delivery of a variety of PPE materials. So Marion, if you want to reach out to me, because we always like donations, but I just want to reassure everyone we are not lacking for PPE, but if you want to reach out to me, we can talk more about that. And we do plan, just so you know, we're learning some lessons from preschool, and so students aren't, they aren't great with masks. They're little kids, right? You should see, right, our lost and found during the year where there was lots of jackets left outside and things like that. So we are, I think we're going to order, for lack of a better word, it's kind of a lanyard, but it's got 2 hooks on it. They can hook their mask to it so that when they're out at recess or taking a break, it's just hanging from their neck as opposed to possibly dropping on the floor or something like that and then losing it. And we've also supplied preschool with some extra of the disposable masks, just so if a kid does lose it, they're able to send them home with at least a disposable mask on the bus. First grade, we heard 2 dates, November 30th and after winter break. We prefer after winter break in person. Do I need to make that intent change? So yeah, I'm not sure about the dates other than I can tell you that the proposed date from Dr. Brabrand to the school board is that week of November 30th. And so December 1st would be the first day that students are back. If your student is in person and not here, we would mark them absent. And if they're joining, virtually for some reason, then, we wouldn't mark them absent. But the expectation is they would be here on December 1st. If you're in 1st or 2nd grade, that's the expectation. And I just preface that for, as of now, that November 12th school board meeting, things could change. Marianne, I see your question mark, so you can go ahead.
Hey, Chris, I have a couple questions. My perspective is from a student who would be 100% virtual the 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if your student was going to get a teacher change because they're not going in person and that their teacher say was to go in person, would you get a teacher that is currently within your grade? So for example, if there's currently, let's say at a 1st grader and there's currently four 1st grade teachers, would you still get a teacher who's already teaching 1st grade, or could you get a teacher that's teaching 3rd grade? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and I always leave a little crack of a door open. I don't see a scenario where that would occur because we're not at each grade level. We are not adding more students or less students, right? Like no one's switching grade levels, right? So the same number of kids are there. It's just a matter, are they in person or are they virtual, right?
Okay. So for example, if you had 4 classes per grade, you would, and half were going to be virtual and half were going to be in person, you wouldn't, for example, say, okay, this virtual one is going to be by someone who needed ADA accommodations, but they happen to be teaching 2nd grade or 6th grade.
Correct. No. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And to follow up with that, currently in some of the grades, like in 5th grade, my daughter has one primary teacher, but she goes to someone else for math. So will that still potentially occur? And is it possible she would end up with one of those teachers as her primary, or is she going to lose possibly both teachers?
Again, we want to minimize the disruption. So if we can make it work where she still has the same math teacher, we certainly want to do that. And again, I wish this chicken and egg thing, it's just, it is what it is, unfortunately, right? So there is that possibility. I think, I don't want to dig too deep in, Marianne, about your individual child. So
no, that's okay. I'm just
I might be able to give you a better answer about where your child switches to. So if you want to email me, we can arrange a phone call.
That's fine. I was just trying to understand whether that factor was being that was being taken in, factored in, that some of the kids not only have the one teacher, they have a second, and it would be even harder to lose 2 teachers.
Yep. No, I agree. So what I would say is, as of now, if your child goes to an advanced math class, that most likely will not change, right? That teacher is going to continue to teach advanced math. If they're switching for another reason, we should be able to accommodate that. Okay.
And I have a couple of other questions, once again, that really apply to the people who are 100% virtual, not doing concurrent. I guess I wondered, why not continue some asynchronous live learning on Mondays for the classes that are 100% virtual, because we've been doing that, and that wouldn't be so much of a change, or them needing necessarily the extra time, and those students won't be getting any in-person teacher time. So why not allow some of that live learning for those students on Monday?
So that's a school board decision. That one's out of my hands. So that they decided across the board, once students phase back in, or actually a couple of weeks ahead of time, that Mondays turn to asynchronous. There was a lot of positives going on Monday. I feel like in our building, I think having that time for the social emotional lesson on Monday, we're still going to continue that. We're looking at Tuesdays to do that school-wide, but I think having that common time in the morning was good. I think having kids have access to some additional specials opportunities was good. Having the clubs, the ukulele club. I'm a part of the ukulele club, so I learned how to tune a ukulele 2 weeks ago. So I agree, there was a lot of positives, and that's a Dr. Brabrand and school board decision on that one. So I'm gonna have to follow it.
No, I appreciate that, and in line with that, is a teacher still allowed to do a one-on-one Google Meet on Monday if it's needed for, sometimes they had those individual because there was a problem or something?
Yes, the teachers can. Again, I'm going to decide on that one, that ultimately that is their planning time, because planning time during the week, they normally, if we were all back here, they would normally have an hour a week minimum to plan, and that's a challenge when we're talking about eating in classrooms, when specials have been reduced by half an hour, right? Specials are usually an hour, so during the course of a regular school day, that's when grade level teachers would have their planning time, and so it just gets tricky finding that planning time when they have a reduced special schedule and when they have lunches in their classroom, things like that. So it's possible. I would say What's more likely is to carve out that time that we have during the 2:35, the family kind of choice time at the end of the day. You may see more teachers doing stuff with smaller groups then, as opposed to Monday.
Okay, and one last quick question. There was another parent who asked about if there was a change to the actual start and end days of the schedule at some point down the road, you know, like you talked about, if there was a busing issue or something for the kids going in person. As a parent who would be having a child stay home 4 days virtual, I would also like you to support the idea that we would like to stick with our regular schedule, because it would be very disruptive for our students to say, now you have to start either earlier or go to 5 for really no purpose. And most children learn better earlier in the day.
I don't disagree with you, and I've got to staff both of those campuses, for lack of a better word, right? So it just gets, it gets challenging trying to figure out how we, run specials again and things like that when you have, not only do you have kids in 2 different spots, you'd have them starting at 2 different times, right? So I hear you, and we'll, part of it is we'll see if we'll get to that point. So
okay, thank you a lot, Chris.
You're
That's
welcome.
all. Thank you.
Elizabeth, it is certainly a high priority. I just wanted to be honest in terms of timelines that it'll look better for, I think we, unfortunately, because of timelines, we can certainly do more for 1st and 2nd or 3rd and 6th than we can do for kindergarten, right? And so I just wanted to be honest about that, but certainly, absolutely, right? Whether it's something we can do something in person to have kids come here for the in-person kids, or virtually, we certainly, we don't want here's what I can guarantee you. The first day that we do the switch isn't going to be the first day that they meet their teacher. And I know that for kindergarten as well. It's just going to be a bit more challenging with kindergarten with the timeline. It was break time. Yeah, that's why I saw the kids. Good to see they're taking advantage of their break. Situation where a 100% virtual student would have to attend a current class, and that is a possibility. Again, that when you say concurrent, I'm assuming you're talking about a class where you have both the in-person kids and the 100% virtual kids, right? And so that's a possibility, but we want to use that as a last resort. Again, the best practice is for us to separate the 100% virtual kids, but when you get into things like advanced math or some of the advanced academics, things like that, we may need that. Certainly in some of the small groups, which are done with special ed and ESOL, you may have a combination of those. Will teacher preferences from the summer be taken into account? The teacher preferred all virtual, but they would like to have all virtual students. So yes, and they have a chance to redo preferences. I have, again, I've been very fortunate. I've all through the course of the summer and now, teachers reach out. The one that we can guarantee is that tier 1 accommodation, which is they have their own personal health risk. Just so you know, the other tiers deal with if you have someone in the immediate household that has some health risks or daycare issues or just uncomfortable returning. And so I'm confident that we can meet a lot of our teachers' requests. I know there's a lot of concern out there about that and how the teachers are. Again, I can't tell you how fortunate we are. I'm not just saying that because we are. Like we truly are. Like it is. We have an awesome staff here, and they have told me they'll do what needs to be done to make sure the kids learn. Tyler, so you have a 50-50 split between in-person and virtual. Given all right, trying to follow the math here, Tyler. So if you have 100 students, 4 teachers, 62. Yeah, so again, my stress as the principal comes from, again, less about whether you choose in-person or virtual and I think this is what you're getting at, Tyler, right? Do they break down in chunks that are manageable, that keeps us under a cap, right? And so like and I think this is where you're going, Tyler, chime in if I'm, okay, you said exactly. So this is what I was thinking, use that 100 number, right? Because that's easiest to get your head around. But like if 30 or 31 people choose, and again, doesn't matter to me what option it is, whether that's in person or virtual, but if a class of 100 and it's 31 or 32 kids that choose one of the options, that leaves me over the cap, right? So, I will tell you that over the summer, K through 6, 7 grade levels, there were 2 grade levels where there was a cap concern. We never got to this point. We're further down the road right now with this process than we were in July, right? Because almost as soon as your preferences were, I feel like it was a Thursday, we started working on it in July. And by Saturday, I'd gotten an email to like stop planning, that things were changing. So, I have some ideas. One, looking at, depending on how that breaks down, are there some students who are not attending virtually, who have chosen, the parents have chosen virtually, giving those parents a call to say, we're not seeing a great success virtual. Would you think about coming in person? Reaching out to that group of 30 to go, you know what, we're over the cap. We prefer to keep our numbers the same. Is there anyone, we have a room in our virtual setting. Is there anyone who wants to reconsider? Again, we'll figure out a way to make it happen. The ultimate solution is I would put extra staffing in that class. And so if we have to go over a cap, I've got to finagle some things on a logistical standpoint in terms of like who actually is assigned the kid, but like day-to-day operational wise, I would assign extra help to that class. Does that help, Tyler? Okay. Yeah. Yep. So that's my nightmare. My nightmare is if they don't break up into these around 25, divisible by 25. That's what I'm hopeful for, right? So, can the kids wear? Yes, Kevin, they can wear those as well. It is cloth. I should have my mask. It's right here. It is a smaller version. Hopefully you can see that. A smaller version of this mask. So it's a cloth mask. And I know different ones have different plies. I don't know what this one is, but it's not single ply. I know that. Like it's one of the thicker ones that I have. So all kids have that. But we only have one of those for every kid. Like once that one's gone, then and if they don't bring any to school, it'll be disposable. Austin, yes. So because we will have 100% in-person sections and 100% virtual sections, if a teacher has a virtual section, they have the ability to stay virtual if they want, or they can also come in and teach from here, from their classroom. It's just they don't have any students in it. And hopefully that answers the question. So that's the end of the chat. Other questions, either verbally or in the chat? So just remember, you only need to let us know if you're changing your preference. If you're sticking with whatever you chose in July, you do not need to contact us. If you're a kindergarten parent, because they're first back in the building, we will certainly notify them. Again, the goal is by next Monday, the 9th, of any teacher changes. And so the question about sticking with it, again, if we have room and we're not above caps, it's not a hard no, but I can't guarantee you that we can switch kids back and forth. In this model, again, we may run up against some caps where I can't move those kids. But again, if we have space, we will certainly make accommodations. But I would go in with the mindset of this is for the rest of the year, and hopefully things change positively, but we'll see. Okay, I see people leaving. Again, I'm I will stay until the last person leaves, so feel free to ask questions.
Mr. Smith, I do have a question.
Megan, go ahead, and then I see, hold on before you go, Megan, but Rob, I'll get to your question next after Megan. Go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, I wasn't able to
No,
type
that's
in
okay.
chat
Go ahead.
on my phone. I did have a question about the laptops in school. Is there going to be enough charging stations for the children's laptops? Because my son, maybe I need to call IT, but every time it gets unplugged, it completely turns off. So there is no battery life on it.
Megan, what grade is your child in?
Kindergarten.
Okay, so I should have said this, and I neglected the school board. This is a very positive thing, is buying laptops for all 3rd and 4th grade students across the county, and we expect those in January. So part of the problem, Megan, with the kindergarten laptops is you guys have the older ones that we have.
Okay.
So first off, contact, you can call the main office here or call the IT number. We can set you up with an appointment, and we might be able to switch out that computer.
Okay.
We are not, I came from an FCPS on school previously, and the expectation, and it was surprising how well the kids followed it, was to charge laptops at night and bring them in. We could provide a charging cart to every classroom. My concern is, I don't know if we have the space for it when you start to put the social distancing guidelines in for desks. So right now, the expectation is they would take it home every night, charge it, bring it back, and we would put like 3 or 4 chargers in the room in case something happened. I'd like, from, as I was saying earlier, there's a way for us to keep the laptops here overnight. On the night, this gets confusing, right? You know, if it's Tuesday and the kid's coming back Wednesday, so there's not another day of transportation back and forth, but we'd have to provide enough chargers for everybody. So, so it's on our mind. Let's get that computer, hopefully, you know, fixed for you. And then we do have a way to charge them here, but the expectation is they would bring a charged laptop. Does that make sense, Megan?
Okay. So are you recommending that I go in to exchange this computer or get them to
Yeah, I
back?
call there's the parent helpline, which will then trigger usually a ticket to us, and then we set up an appointment with you. And so our technology specialist is here Monday afternoons, Tuesday and Thursday. So let's look at that first, and then we're going to be working on. And the good news about 3rd and 4th grade is we'll be able to trickle some of the computers that 3rd and 4th grade have down to the lower grades to get them some better machines as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. All right, and then some more questions came in. A feeling of whether kindergarten start date will get moved back by the school board given the viral load increases. Rob, there's a number, right? First off, there's a quick turnaround, you know, that November 12th meeting, and then we're expected to bring kindergartners back that following Tuesday on the 16th. So I think there's logistical issues about how the teaching is going to be going. You know, they're going to get a report on the concurrent pilot schools that's going on. So I'm planning on the 17th. I'm just going to leave it at that. I think there's always a chance. Here's what I know. It's not going to be any sooner than that. But yes, there's certainly a possibility that could be pushed back. But I haven't heard anything, and I think we just have to wait to the 12th, unfortunately, to find out. So we're preparing for this for Tuesday the 17th for our kindergartners to be here. Okay, thank you, folks. Thank you. That's the Fairfax County School Board. Sorry for the that wasn't clear there. So Fairfax County at last week's board meeting with some of the extra funding from the federal government has, thanks Diego, see ya. They're going to buy all 3rd and 4th grade students in the county new laptops, and we should have those out to students, I'm told, by January. So we'll keep you up to date on that. Yeah, we realize certainly that some of the older models Yep, Austin, if you, again, just call us here at school and we'll get that laptop for you if they need it. All right. Any other questions? About the yeah, Meredith, it'll look very similar to the laptop distributions we've had. So as soon as we get them in the building and get them loaded up with everything they need, we will get that information out. And yeah, you would switch out what you currently have. And if you don't have one and you wanted one, you could also get that. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Miss seeing you around school, Natasha. I'm going to be the last one out. So if you're waiting for me to leave, you're going to be here a long time. So I'm happy to take any more questions that you have.
Mr. Smith, if the kid decides to use a Chromebook from home, would that be okay? Or do they have to use a school issued laptop at school if they're in person?
Are you asking, should they bring their Chromebook to school?
No, I'm one of the kindergarten parents that if it's not plugged in, it doesn't work. And I'm thinking it might just be easier if I buy her a Chromebook that that she can use at school. But I'm just trying. I know there might be network difficulties associated with that.
I mean, a lot of what we're doing is either web-based or Google-based, right? So if you wanted to buy a Chromebook, I know certainly people are using them. Have you come in to try to get yours fixed?
Yes, twice.
Twice.
And, yeah.
And still just it's not holding a charge. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Can we give it one more try to
Sure. Sure.
And come back in? Because I think our preference is that you have a school computer because we know for sure, in theory, right, all the programs and things will work. But I know Chromebook isn't a reasonable option that people have been going with if they choose to buy one. In terms of pullouts, so again, a lot of this is it's certainly still gonna occur as we get the numbers in of who is in person and who is virtual. I think again, in those environments, and those are smaller groups, you'll see more of the mix of 100% virtual students with some in-person students, right? So if I was a special ed teacher, and I'm pulling a group of 6 for a reading program, that group most likely, again, without seeing definite numbers yet, most likely that would be a time where, where it's, again, that mix of 100% virtual kids with in-person kids as well. If they're in person, we're going to pull them and the teacher would have the other kids on the Google Meet. Like we want that, in-person interaction if they choose that.
So pulled to a different room, I assume? Or...
Yes. So we will not every room will be used here with this model, because you have teachers and students who will be 100% virtual. So, yeah, we have capacities in each room. So again, that's what we'll have to work through, right? Is, I talked to some special ed teachers yesterday, and if they have a group of 6, we should have space in regular sized classrooms, even though that their room might fit them technically from a facility standpoint. If we've got a bigger room to move them to, we'll certainly do that so we can provide more spacing. And we'll get all that'll start to trickle down as we get more information about the virtual versus the in-person, and then we can figure out where kids are. So, Rob, I'm gonna go. Rob, I just want to make sure you're still here, because if you're not, I'm gonna answer your question. But if you're not here, I want to make sure you're here. Okay. I was just gonna connect with you, just in case you didn't hear the answer. I'm gonna pull up a couple slides here at the end of the presentation. And again, this is information that you did not have in July. So I'm going to start with this one. So this is becoming ill here at school. This is part of what's on that form. It's the same criteria, right? So if a child has any of these, we move them to the isolation room. It'll be monitored by me or one of the assistant principals, and we'll have you pick them up. And then that's when, if they, that's illness at home. And so if it is a COVID case, first off, students are showing signs. If they're sent home, they either have to give us evidence of a negative test, or a healthcare provider has said that they're able to come back to school at least 10 days from the start of symptoms, fever-free, and symptoms are getting better. If they have COVID-19, they're not able to return. At least 10 days have passed, no symptoms, and or symptoms are getting better. Students who've been exposed, and if someone in the household has been exposed, or the student is exposed, the student must remain home for 14 days after their last exposure. And then some communication about here in the classroom. So with one confirmed case, they'll do the contact tracing. Individuals who are identified during the contact tracing will receive notification. The contact tracing is the exposure under 6 feet for more than 15 minutes is the definition of exposure. And that's on our health screening form as well. So those folks will be notified. Then if there's 2 or more COVID cases, work closely with the health department. We'll send out community will be notified of this outbreak. And then really it's the Fairfax Health Department who's going to make the decision of whether or not we close or not. So it's a little bit more information for you. I think it's a lot more information than we had for you in July, where that was still a big question. But ultimately it is going to be a case by case or scenario school. Does that help somewhat, Rob? Okay. List of supplies that you brought in. Yes. Well, Katie, what grade level is your child? Second. Okay. So yeah, that will be developed. We're working on kindergarten now. Bottom line is, we're not going to be sharing anything within the class, or, sharing very, very little, right? So each student's going to have their own basic supplies, much like you probably have at home now. So we will be working to get that list out as we get closer to the time. Does that help, Katie? Katie left. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, so Mrs. Hughes, again, if I just go back to those symptoms, for instance, runny nose, for instance, is not a symptom of COVID, right? So what I'm doing is following, I'm not a health professional, so I'm following those bullet points right there in that slide. That's what's on the document that the in-person parents will agree to. So if it's not one of those things, then we're going to treat it normally, right? I think the big thing is, is it a runny nose and one of these things, right? Again, we have younger kids, and if a teacher asks, do you also have a sore throat? They certainly might respond to that, right? So, as soon as one of those symptoms, then, our health clinic aide will be the first person to again, kind of re-examine. one example is, for instance, yesterday we had a student did not reach 100.4, but also wasn't at 98.6, right? So, we called the parent, we contacted the health department again. They are very strict about this 100.4. So I'm gonna follow that in terms of if it's not 100.4, we may have a conversation with the parent, but if they want to stay, they would have to have some of those other symptoms. So does that help? It's
I was just trying to figure out, like, if they come to school, if they have allergies or something. I don't know. It's just kind of, I get those bullet points.
So I think that that's where communication with that, right? That emphasis on the word new, right? I think that's where we, if they're complaining about a sore throat, we need to trust, you guys are trusting us and we need to trust you, right? So we're going to give you a call and you say, what, they have allergies every morning. They wake up with a little bit of a scratchy throat, but it's, I can assure you that it's,
well, yeah, and I'm going to know if my kid has strep or something. I'm just wondering.
Right.
Are we, okay. People walking by, yes. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome, Katie. Yeah, Kevin, so exactly right. So they would, you're talking about, right, so your child you've selected in person for your child, but if they need to stay home because of quarantine or something, they would just become virtual, but with their class. They wouldn't be switching teachers for that. They would do that all 4 days for, a couple weeks or however until they get better, right?
Would that convert also to, say, another illness? So say it's not COVID, say it's not a COVID symptom, they're just not feeling well. And, morning they're not feeling well, afternoon, they're feeling a little bit better. Can we have them log in to, say, the afternoon? Say they were supposed to be in, say it's a Wednesday or Friday or whatever they were supposed to be in. Can we have them log in the afternoon since they're virtual?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Okay.
No. Yeah. If you again, we want them a part of the education process, right? So if they wake up and they're not feeling well, and you know your kids, and that again in this environment even more cautious than normal, and then they're better later in the day. Again, you can bring them in person, you can keep them at home, and be virtual. So, yep, that's definitely an option.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, Austin. I'm going to go back. The key part is that wow, it is just pouring down rain, huh? We'll start with this one. So there's the key distinction of what we're doing here is there's also a group C, right? So group A has selected in school, and they're going to come 2 days a week and be online 2 days a week. And group B, same teacher, and those kids will come in Thursday and Friday. So there's also this group C kids. Group C kids are the kids that have chosen to be 100% virtual. So what we're doing is our group C kids will be in their own classes with a teacher teaching them, and our group in A and B kids will have the in-person teacher. So, and then going to this slide. Whoops, let me go back, sorry. So when your child is in person, they're all, half of the class will be in person on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the other half of the class roughly will be at home. And so they're going to have morning meeting together, right? Half of that class will use Google Meet, while the other part of the class is here in person. They'll have a focus lesson for language arts, which is usually 10 to 15 minutes together. And then at that point, at least early on, our in-person teachers will focus on the in-person kids and give some independent work for the virtual kids. And then that switches on Thursday and Friday, right? All of a sudden, your student might be the in-person one, and the other part of that class is virtual, right? So they get the same experience over the course of the week. It's just going to look different depending on whether or not that day they're in person or virtual. Does that help, Austin? Did I confuse you more? Austin, are you still there? So Tyler, it will be the same. We'll mark them as present, right? If they're attending virtually as opposed to their in-person day. What I will say, since we've walked down this road, what we can't do is I can't do the opposite, right, Tyler? So if you're, if like your son, I'm sorry, I don't remember if it's a son or daughter, but if your child is supposed to be here on Wednesday and you keep them home and they attend school, so they're present, right? We're marking them present. I can't get, what we probably can't do is have them come Thursday or Friday, right?
No, that makes sense.
Right. I mean, we might be able to, depending on how numbers break down, but I can't. That's a lot harder, a little bit harder of a fix based on the spaces in the classroom. So
they would have up to 2 days in school, but if they needed to stay home for a symptom or sniffle or something like that, they can still just log in virtually.
Correct. Yep. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Yeah. Thank you. Have a good afternoon or good afternoon. It's 11. So yeah. All right. Amanda, you're our last one. Do you have any questions?